Welcome to part 5 of this mini class. I start blending again after adding the yellow ochre and by just adding some translucent gesso. I added some darker colors too, as you can see. And I'm just starting blending them a little bit. As I told you again, please don't be afraid to add some darker colors. Some parts just need to be dark, and there is always gesso, like you can see here. I can't help myself. I love to add layers, a lot of layers to a face, and in my opinion, every layer keeps on visible in the painting, and that's just what I love to do, and that's just what I'd like you to see how my process is and why I do it. Here I add a little bit of water to the crayon to make it wet and so it becomes watercolor. I'm trying my other brush because this is a layer I'd like to stay really visible, and the watercolor brushes are less, how do I say it, they are softer, and you can see that because they are softer. It has a different view. It is different. There stays more color on the face than if you use a harder brush, and although the other brush is a watercolor brush too, these are really different from the small watercolor brush I have. And again, some gesso. By the way, this is not a watercolor brush, this is a Gwenson brush, but it is a perfect brush to blend everything together with watercolors, but also with acrylic paints. I started filling in her eyes with a light blue, and normally I love to add a lot of color to my eyes, but I think it is very difficult with neo color too, but in the end I will succeed. And I will use, I believe, other mediums to add some color, because I really like to have a lot of color in the eyes. One, in real life, you all have a lot of colors in the eyes, but two, I think it looks really lovely. And I always try to let the eye color come back in the face or in her neck, like you see me do here. I just add a little bit of the blue in her neck and to her forehead, the sides of her forehead. So that's something I do to get, I think it adds a little bit to the painting. It is, anyway, I like to do that. That's just the way I work. A little bit to the sides of her face too. Just play with that. I know when I started doing this, I really was afraid to ruin the painting, but it really doesn't. It looks really great if you use a total different eye color and you let that same color come back in your painting on another spot in the face. It balances the whole painting. Just adding some white into the whites of her eyes. Later on we are going to shade the eyes because eyes are never that white. A little bit highlights to the tip of her nose and the bridge of her nose and the nostrils. A little bit on the chin. And now I start adding some darker blue in the eyes. My eyes are most of the times surrealistic, so not really realistic, but I like to do that. As many of you know, I'm not a realistic painter. I I'm also not a whimsical artist, but I like it in between. I like to do different things in my painting. I think I often shade with a reference photo, but when you look at my girls, they are often more on the whimsical side. So I'm trying to, I think I have my own style. People recognize my art, but I'm always looking for something different. I'm always looking to do something different. Yeah, I can explain. I think the shading of my girls are often realism, but the girl itself, the drawing, is almost always surrealistic. So I'm giving the color, the lips a light pink color, and the upper lip is most of the time darker than the lower lip, so I'm adding some purple to it. Because it's wet, I just drip it in. And you can see it blends a little bit down to the lower part of her lip, but that's okay. I'm trying to manage that a little bit, and I succeed. Later on, the lower lip will be a little bit shaded too. At this point, I wanted things to be dry, so I used my heat gun. I don't do it with my watercolors, but in this case it's different because I also use a lot of gesso. Excuse me. This is black gesso. You don't need black gesso, so please don't go out and buy black gesso. Any black paint will do, and if you don't have black paint, use black watercolors, and if you don't have black watercolors, you can use markers. This class is not about you going out and buy a lot of expensive supplies. Just use what you have, and you will, in the end, the results will be the same. I decided to make really dark eyebrows, and the upper eyelid will be really dark too. I think I'm trying to do it with this brush, but in the end it is way too thick. And I'm going to look for a smaller brush. I didn't like it that thick, so I'm taking a baby wipe and I'm trying to wipe it off. It's a little bit messy, but I don't mind. It's all okay. I'm searching for a brush here, a smaller one. I have a really tiny one, but I couldn't find that tiny one, so in the end I took a really cheap one, and I will manage to paint the upper eyelids. In my early when I started painting, I really wanted the upper eyelid to be really smooth, and I wanted to be a harsh line, but now I'm loving it to be more imperfect, to be more irregular. You can see it when I'm painting her upper eyelid. It gives so much more character to a face if it isn't perfect. Here you can see I use really tiny ones. These are very cheap brushes, and it will be okay. You can see I make little strokes, almost little dashes. That's what I do, and not a straight perfect line. I love to do the eyes because when I do the eyes, then she becomes real. She becomes a person. She becomes there is a story. I always try to understand her story, and I think this girl really is beautiful. Also, the pupils are never perfectly round. At least I think they are never perfectly round, but I never paint them perfectly round because I think just because I like that. That's just my style, and that's just what I like to show all of you. And you know that I'm all about imperfect art, and a lot of people always tell me, well, your girls look amazing, but really they are not perfect. If you look good at my painting, you can see her eyes are not even, they are not the same size. Her mouth is not completely in the middle of underneath her nose, and I don't mind. I really like it, and I'm painting for me, and I just love to share it with all of you what my process is. Here in the middle of the mouth is always some darkness, and I did it with watered down gesso, black gesso. You can use, as I told you, the black paint. Here I have really watered down black gesso, and I'm trying to make a shadow in the let me see how I say that. The shadow is underneath the upper eyelid. That would, from the lashes, you would naturally have some shadow there. So I always make it darker. The eyes are always very shaded, and so I always add a dark line, and often on the sides and below too. But that's just different. I have no rules for that. The process of my paintings are always by feeling. I seldom think over a painting or sit down and tell myself, so now I'm going to make this or now I'm going to make that. Really seldom. So not often. I always paint from my heart, and I really like to do that. And ever since I started doing that, my art changed, really changed. I'm adding some little tiny dots to the nostrils of her nose, white. And then I'm painting to indicate that there is a nostril, because there's not enough shading. I just draw it with watered down black gesso. It's not for every painting that I do it this way, but for this girl I did. Some little touch-ups, a little darkness on her lower lip. Again, excuse me, I have really bad allergies today. Again, some darkness underneath her chin in her neck. And that really makes a difference, in my opinion. The white spot, then she immediately comes to life. Sometimes I do very complicated things with eyes, and sometimes I think the girl just needs one little white dot. A little watered down gesso, and I want to add a little white line on the upper eyelid. And you can see that's too much, but I just drag it over to the other side. Be creative with the eyes. Don't be afraid to add different kind of colors to it. It makes it very interesting. Again, a little bit gesso on her cheeks. These are water-soluble oil pastels from Portfolio, is the brand. They are very, very cheap, and they are my most favorite brand to use in my art journal. It is that they are not light fast, because if they were, I would not use another brand. I really like these. They are very soft, very smooth. They are very good to blend into the face, and I use them almost daily. Really, really like them, and they are very cheap and water soluble. Not all oil pastels are water soluble. Just adding some of the light blue, like in her eyes. And I can tell you, if I start with oil pastels, I can't stop. I really like to do that, and I love them. And it is another layer. Thank God I see it here. Her neck is not great. It is another layer to the painting. They blend really good. And I blend a little darkness into her, the size of her face. Blend it. And then I come back with a yellow ochre. Don't forget to use the same finger all the time because it will smear a lot. The white one, I'm going to, and now we are in the stage for the touch-ups. A little bit of white to her chin because that stands out, so that's always a little bit lighter. The forehead. Yeah, I'm looking if I have a clean finger. Little touch up on that eye because it wasn't good enough for my taste, wide enough. And you can see it is very loose, and the eye, and very imperfect. This is a blue Posca. I'm going to add it to her eyes. I'm making them more round. Dabbing, always dabbing away. I do that a lot. You see me do that a lot. This is a lighter blue Posca pen. Just add some light blue. It also gives a highlight in the eyes. That eye, I did lose the yellow in that eye, so I've added some yellow. A little bit of white in her neck. And I see that I totally forgot to color her ears, but I see there it is. So I'm going to add some color to her ears. I don't often draw ears, rarely. And when I do, I'm really basic by coloring them. So I just add some skin color and the darker color and blend it a little bit. And for me, that indicates that that's an ear. So I think that's good enough. I don't want to paint a detailed ear. Here I take my black gesso. I didn't like her top, so I'm going to make it black. You can use a black paint too, or a marker, it's all fine. I love the black top. I must say I use a lot of black in my art, and I use a lot of color, but I do love black in my art. And I know that a lot of people are really scared to use black, but I like it a lot. I think it gives a very dramatic feeling to a page. And if you don't like the black, then by all means, please use a color you really, really like. You don't have to follow me exactly. This is just my process, and you're perfectly free to use any color you like. I really love the dark skin color of her face. I'm trying to indicate here that her shoulder is round and that her top comes from behind. On the left side, I really managed to do that. On the right side, a little bit less, but that's okay. I think I clean up my brush, and I was not satisfied with the ears, and because the oil pastels are water soluble, I did add some water to them. I think we are going to start with the hair, and I start off with adding a layer of gesso. So you can see that my process, I start with watercolors, and when I'm in the middle of the painting, I stop thinking about what to use. I just follow my heart. I don't think. I just do it. And because when I started this spread, this art journal spread, I was really I was really confident about making a total spread out of watercolor. And all of a sudden I have a lot of supplies on my desk, and I play with everything that is in front of me or next of me. And I just start to use all kind of different products together. That is, I'm in love with doing that. I think it is, that makes me a real mixed media artist. I can really use a lot of different supplies in one painting, but you don't have to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You could have done this complete spread with only watercolor and a little bit of gesso. That would be exactly the same, but I can't help myself. I'm just that kind of an artist. Here I try to get some texture with the gesso. And later on, I believe I did that off camera. And later on, I scribbled with the back of a paintbrush, scribbled some lines into it to just give it more texture. And yes, that's the kind of play I do. That's the way I think. That's the way I am. And that's what I'd like to share with all of you. I just want you to loose up, be yourself. Don't be afraid to try new things, and just do it. And I see that I'm out of frame here, but what I'm doing is I'm making white dots on her top. And sometimes that happens that I zoom in for you guys so you can see what I do, and then I forget to zoom out. But I'm not doing something special. You can see it when I'm zooming out in a minute. Here I see I was out of frame. I just made some white dots on her top. Very playful, very intuitive. And there was a little bit of ochre yellow that I didn't dilute it with water, so I do that now. And I'm not I still need to learn a lot about arms and hands, so I just make them a little bit white with a skin color, and that's it for the arms. I'm not doing anything special. I'm heat drying it, and now I'm back, and there you can see the squabbles I forgot to put on the camera. There are only scribbles with the back of a paintbrush, and then I start with the flower. I'm by no means a artist that are very good at painting flowers, although a lot of people love my flowers, but I'm not doing anything special, and you can see that here. It's just very playful, and I'm just making random stripes. Not all the way to the petals to the end, only in the center, and some of them a little bit further. The center I did make yellow. Excuse me. Of course, the top of the flower is a little bit smaller. I tried to think a little bit in 3D, but in the end I think I made it really large. And also very messy, not very precise, and very messy in the early stage of coloring the flower. This is red. The first color was orange, and you can almost not see any difference. This is red. This is watercolor, by the way. Just from any brand will work. And this is watercolor. And on the head of the girl, on her hair, I have a little bit of a problem because there are some oil pastels, and it needs time to. They are water soluble, but it needs time to sink in. So that will be okay in a later stage of this painting from the flower. You can see I'm very messy. I don't have really a plan. I always thought I was not that good at painting flowers, but people love them, and I love them too, and that's the most important thing, that I love my own art. I'm picking up some color and moving it a little bit around in the center, because there it would be naturally a little bit darker. And as you can see, I'm not very precise about that. I'm just trying to get the first layer onto this flower. I'm rinsing my brush here. And I think I'm mixing another color, a purple color, more purple color. And you can mix purple by adding red and blue together. Yes, this is more the purple-blue color. And I'm trying to make it a little bit darker in the center of the flower, where the petals start, because there would be more darkness in there. If your paint is still wet, you can just drop in color. Nothing fancy. And because the underneath layer is still wet, it will flow on its own. Even more darker colors, almost black. I love to use paint gray, and with watercolors I mix it myself by a very dark blue, the most dark blue you have, and a black, and then you will get paint gray. And here I add with the paint gray some black dots in the center of the flower. This is yellow. I'm adding some yellow on the outer sides of the petals. I think it is just by using all kinds of different colors that makes a flower interesting. I think that's what people like to, what is good for the eye if there are multiple colors on a flower. And I know artists who paint really amazing flowers. Unfortunately, I'm not that kind of an artist, but I like my own flowers too. And here you can see I'm making the petals larger and larger and larger by just feathering out the color to the end, and I like it. Now I'm drying very quick this paint, because I really want to add another layer. This is the stem of the flower, very intuitive. Adding a little bit of green in the center of the flower, but the flower is still not ready. By no means it is ready. A lot to come. This is what I do a lot. I'm drying and mixing, and I keep on drying. I don't know why I do that. You don't have to do that, by the way. And in my opinion, you can see this flower has been dried with the heat gun, and I think the colors are not that bright than when I would let it dry by air. But for the purposes of time and this class, I really wanted that layer to be dry, so I used my heat gun. Again, some red over the total flower, the total petals, I mean. And some will be darker and some will be lighter. Some yellow will be visible and some other yellow will be gone. But that's just the build. I'm building it up like this, and this is the way how I paint my intuitive flowers. Still watercolor. This is a red color. And again, with watercolor it's the same. Every layer is a layer and all the other layers underneath will be visible. And now if you look at it, you can see that the center of the flower becomes more 3D. It becomes more, yeah, you can see that it is more 3D by now. I'm going to add, in a minute I'm going to add more darkness and then it will become more 3D. Even more 3D. I really like it in this stage. I'm feathering out all the colors. Here I go. I add paint gray to the center of the flower. I'm just dripping it in. I'm not even painting. I'm just making little dots because it is still a little bit wet there and it will flow out on its own. And I don't want straight lines. I make it very irregular, just like a real flower. And now it becomes even more 3D. I'm adding some water to the inner side just for blending sake. And now I'm letting this dry, I believe. Later on we will add some white to get the final layer in our flower. Or am I doing it right away? No. We are going to work on the hair. This is paint gray. As I told you, if you don't have paint gray like I am, I don't have paint gray. You can make your own by water down some, take some black watercolor and add the most dark blue you have, and you need to play a little bit with that because there are a lot of blues. Mine is really dark, and I make my own paint gray. Paint gray is more on is a black but more on the blue side, and because watercolors are translucent, it is not an opaque layer but a translucent layer, and I like it on this girl's hair. I need to work a little bit with the flower because the flower, maybe I could have done the hair and then the flower, but that's okay. I don't mind. We will play. The dark hair makes this girl way more beautiful than the white hair. And I think that's just because her face is pretty dark shaded. You see, it is not a problem if you did, if you followed me in this class and did the flower. You just can work around the flower. It's not a problem at all. At the center of, next to her face, I'd like to make it a little bit darker. So I added some black to my wash. And I make it a little bit darker there. It naturally, your hair, the closer to your head, the darker the hair is. So, and I'm adding some of the dark color here and there. Drying it, I think it looks wonderful. I'm just heat drying it a little bit, so you can see there's a lot of water on her hair, and I just want it to be a little bit dry so it won't run away on me. Also the center of the book, of my journal. I've created this journal myself, by the way, in the mix and match class. Here we go. Now I'm taking the black gesso, and I did have something in the lid, so I added some water to it to make it to a wash, and I even make it more dark. And I really like the dark hair. You can make the hair of your girl just the way you want. Try to be intuitive about it. Don't overthink it too much. What color of your hair needs to be. The girl of your hair from your girl needs to be. But for me, I just wanted it to be translucent, but also dark. I'm going to take a Posca pen, and I just wanted to draw the earrings, and the text in the earrings says "Enjoy life," which I'm trying to do a lot. It's not always easy, but I'm trying to enjoy my life. I'd like to make strange jewelry, not a jewelry that is very common, but a strange jewelry, and these earrings are one of them. And I believe because I have a black marker, I can't help myself, and I do some touch-ups on her face. Yes, there I am. A little bit on the nostrils, between the lips. Her lower lip, just a tiny little bit. The point of her chin. Dabbing it. A little line next to her top. I'm not sure I'm mixing here. Let me see what I'm mixing. Aha, we are going to paint her necklace. And I'm not doing it piece by piece, but I'm just doing it all the way for the first layer, making it a little bit of pinkish red, because I wanted to let the color come back from the flower, and that's what I talked about earlier. The flower is red, pink and yellow, and I just want to let that color come back somewhere on my spread. So here it is. Now I'm adding a little bit of a dark purple. I mixed a dark purple on my own by adding mixing red with blue and a tiny little bit of black. You get a dark purple, and in each part of the jewelry I add a little dot. And of course it all flows, it all blends into each other, but I don't mind. I like it this way. It's very messy, but that's okay. Don't be afraid to do this. Then tiny little, I did water down some gesso, the translucent gesso, and I'm adding piece by piece a little white dot to try to get them a little bit more 3D. And as you can see, that blends too much, but that's okay. Now I dry a little bit that I can add some darkness to indicate that there are beads. So I'm drying it a little bit, and when it's dry I will add, I believe, a darker dot to indicate that they are really beads and not one large necklace. Yes, here are the darker. And I do it with dark purple. And later on I will, with a marker, I will draw the beads back in. And as you can see, even with the beads, I add several colors to get it more 3D, and I do it on my own way and not how it's supposed to be. I even add a little bit of that red, orangey red from the flower, just to give it more dimension, and just because I like that. And you can see I get a little bit impatient, and I will do it a little bit faster, and that's just me. And then I thought the upper row was really a separate bead, and I did blend it all together. And in a minute, when it's dry, I will draw in the beads again. Drying it a little bit to speed up the process. Now I'm taking my black Posca pen and adding different, I'm defining the beads, and I have a kind of a strange thingy above the jewelry. I'm not making the beads very even, very uneven. Don't think about it. Large ones, small ones. I'm following the line that I've created underneath. It's not straight, but that's perfectly fine. And again, I'm trying to indicate that it's coming from behind. It's not easy with a piece of jewelry, a necklace. But in the end, I'm very satisfied with this, and it's my jewelry. Tiny little white dots, and this time I'm trying to be patient. And I think that's a good thing, because it really makes a difference if the jewelry has highlights. You can see it immediately. And I can see that I am patient, because I knew I had to be patient, just to indicate that these are beads. Way better this way. Here we go. I'm adding a little bit of darkness on the on her upper lip, because I thought they were way too light, the the girl itself has a darker skin, a more darker skin. And I just wanted to make the upper lip a little bit darker. And then again, I love to shade the lower lip too. So I've added a little pool of color in the lower lip. Very easy. I just wanted to make the center part of the flower a little bit more dark. It didn't feel right, so I did. And just a little circle around the center, and then I start doodling. That's something I love to do too. I love to doodle. Little petals here, little petals. And when I have a marker in my hands, I see a lot of things I can change, and I add a lot of things here and there. I even get my white marker out. I believe I do that now, but I'm not sure. Or I'm going to, what I'm going to do. Aha, a little bit on her. I think I saw something, and just adding some dark around her eyes and her eyelids. And you will not believe it, but I can keep on playing with a spread for so long, and there is nothing I like to do more than adding layers and layers and layers. Here's my white Posca. I'm going to play a little bit with it on her earrings. And I believe in her necklace a little bit too. And I think I'm adding some white in the flower to highlight it a little bit. Some white underneath her eyes, makes it a little bit cuter and makes her a little bit younger. I've added another little white dot, and here I go. If I have a white marker and I'm playing with eyes, I keep on adding different, and I'm tapping. Always tap away most of the little highlight on the ears. Very messy, as you can see. There is the necklace. And here comes the flower. Aha, I'm doing it in black, and I'm adding some petals to it. That's something I love to do too. I had forgotten this, and I even, this is the day after I created this page. So I did forget that I did add the black to it, and that really makes a difference, I think. Very playful, very loose. As you can see, there are no straight lines. I'm very loose with this part. And here the Poscas don't like oil pastels, so be careful with that. And this is a new one, so I didn't want to ruin it. I'm being very careful here. And stayed on the, here I try it again, just a little touch-ups. But very careful on the oil pastels with your Poscas, they don't like it. Here is the white, and this is a white Faber-Castell. It's ink that's in it, so it's permanent. And I just add a tiny little bit to every petal. And I'm blending it out. Here you can see it's a Faber-Castell pit pen. It's Indian ink that's in it. I love those. I have a complete set of them, and they are really wonderful. And if you do it on the outer bits of the flower, you can see that the darkness in the center even will be more visible. These pens go well on oil pastels, by the way. And that's the flower. I think it is really beautiful this way. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm getting out my background stamp. This is one of my favorite stamps. It's really a small one. But because there is a lot of darkness in the hair and the girls and in tops and that kind of thing, I wanted to let the black come back in the background. So it is very simple to do that by just adding a little bit of ink with a background stamp. It's so easy to do that. And in this process, I don't think too. I just add, I'm going over the hair and even in her neck here. On her arm, just add randomly a little bit of color, go over the flowers, on the corners. That's it. And then I'm even come back with a homemade stamp, I believe. Maybe it is in the next video because this part is almost over. Yes, there is the homemade stamp, and I will see you in the next part of this class.